And we're live.
We're live at the Real Driving Man podcast from the first episode from the studio, I guess, the new studio.
Your new professional studio.
I know, it's so professional.
Yeah.
The most professional ever. I don't know. I don't want to sound like Trump. I don't know.
We're so professional.
We're so professional now. It's more professional than we are.
Sips coffee spiked with Coke.
Dude, I was offered Coke last night. But my internal dialogue said, don't take it. Sorry, we're looking at the camera right here. Okay, so we got...
Staring at the audio levels right now.
Yeah, trying to make sure these are getting correct when you're the audio guy and the...
You got to make sure our sultry voices make it.
And, yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned about the video. The video's kind of like, whatever. I'm going to turn the microphone, though. See,
the video is...
I say it's like, whatever, and then as I'm like, I'm going to change it right now. Fucking, this is...
It's got to be a little scuffed every time. Otherwise, it's not a true podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much better than it used to be. But,
I mean, you've come a long way from...
Here, yeah, I'm going to put the...
Where was...
Trick, because everyone likes to look at themselves. We're going to hide ourselves, so you can just see the audio levels.
You're not going to feed my vainglorious streak?
Yeah.
I'm offended.
How
dare you?
How you been, man?
I'm real tired, actually. It's been good.
Yeah, that's good. You busy?
14-hour days.
Doing vacuum fixing and...
Box truck driving, vacuum fixing, loading, and lots of just regular driving, plus learning to be an electrician.
Why electrician?
Because my roommate is already a plumber.
Oh, yeah, it was just so convenience.
Kind of. Also, electricians don't have to deal with exploding toilets.
That's nice.
It's really... You're either in no danger or all the danger when you're an electrician. It's like you're either going to electrocute yourself and die, or you're going to zap yourself and go, ow. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, the trades are the move. I mean, college degrees are meaning less and less and less.
Yeah.
It's become a business now, I think, more than anything.
I don't mind that it's become a business. I mind that the business itself is of low quality.
Okay. Yeah, sorry for sipping my coffee in these microphones. I think you can turn these off. Yeah, there's an off.
You should buy an ASMR microphone and just sip coffee sometimes.
I know, right? I'll sip coffee away from
you. Get a KU 500 and just sip.
I know, right? It's crazy. The world's actually fucking crazy, and it's so weird how we all talk about it being crazy, and then we just go back to normal life.
That's what I have come to know as humanity. Do you mind if I sound a little crazy?
Go ahead.
Or than normal, I should say. You know, the first time I realized that humanity has one of the craziest adaptive features of all time was when I was reading the Spice and Wolf light novels.
Huh?
So what happens is, I don't entirely remember the situation, but essentially Lawrence and Holo are on their journey.
Spice and Wolf, for those who don't know, is like it's like an anime from it's actually technically old now because it's from like 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, it is. The first couple of light novels were published in 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah, wow, holy shit,
dude, they're old. We're old.
We're not old. We're 26 and 27. That's
we're old enough.
Old enough.
We're old enough to make mistakes and learn from them.
Old enough to not be like too young.
We're old enough to not be too young.
Yeah.
Anyways, what I just remember is Holo commenting to Lawrence, just going, like, humans can get used to anything, is essentially the sentiment that she was putting out. And I was like, there's no way that she's right. She's literally a harvest goddess. And he's a straight up mortal, right? Like, she could, in theory, live to see the rise and fall of civilizations. And he's like, yes, and? Just totally unbothered.
Well, I think you have to have it's like a macro versus micro type situation where you have to have some awareness of the macro nowadays, but then you have to go back to your normal life to some degree. I think people who don't, it's the problem with social media,
Yeah.
is that you are always in this macro, so you feel like all this stuff is happening, not, and that's besides the point that it's like an awful way to communicate.
Yeah. That's actually why I'm going to poke you a bit here on a personal level. That's actually why I disagree with you on some of your opinions on what's the other. There's Brett Weinstein and
Eric.
The less personable one.
Eric.
That's why I have a disagreement with you on your stance around him, which is that it doesn't matter how smart you are, you're still going to specialize because you're a limited human, and that needs to be remembered by everybody.
True, except I think one thing I think that's an argument used by a lot of different people when trying to discredit academics when they step outside their field. But one thing you should understand about academics is that, I mean, there's a difference going from like writing to mathematics, but when you go from like psychology to neurobiology, those are very common jumps, and
they're very closely interlinked, but they're not the same.
Also, when someone is at their level of intelligence, which is up there with, there's, like a class where I'd say, the top level of most intelligent people on the planet, they have a lot of breadth and they make a lot of connections to different things. Also, I think one thing that is very true is Eric is very disagreeable. He's a very disagreeable person, so he's going to like ruffle feathers.
Yeah. Which is good. You need to have a healthy environment. You need to have conflict.
And I think
on some level,
a big thing that Eric, I don't know if he does it purposefully. I don't think he does. I think he's just naturally very smart. Just by listening to him talk, he
makes my brain hurt.
Exactly. And I think that I was around those types of people at university level, and he defends those types of, like, we need those types of people. We need the smartest people to, like, there are people who are smarter than you, and that's one thing you realize when you're in circles like those. There's people who, the smartest person you know is nothing compared to some of those people.
Their intellect vastly outweighs your own.
I don't think he makes it very appealing to the average person.
I think I've articulated this before, but not on this podcast. My worry is that you will get people like him in ivory towers, completely disconnected from the rest of humanity. And they will start making judgment calls based on their knowledge set and skill sets, which they are both unable to explain to the general population, and which in some cases are still, like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're still biased in a certain direction. So you'll get, like, both of the Weinstein boys are incredibly, incredibly smart in their domains. But I would want their knowledge bases supplemented if they were making decisions in, say, warfare.
Well, and they're not claiming to. And one of the reasons I like the Weinstein brothers is because they weren't the ivory towers, especially Brett. Brett is much less disagreeable than his older brother, but at the same time, both of them, like Eric recently had a debate with Terrence Howard, who played the first Iron Man, who had a bunch of very interesting theories and was all self-taught. And he sat down with Joe Rogan and have a great debate. While I understand your concern of the ivory tower, one of the reasons I like Eric is because I think he doesn't represent that. He was willing to go and talk to someone like this and have a conversation on the same level, not considering himself above this person, really having a genuine connection with Terrence Howard.
Yeah. Having a very human connection.
I think if you listen to more Eric, I think you'd get him more. I think he's just disagreeable, so there's
Yeah.
always that in the personality.
No, my worry is that it is a slippery slope, and it's just a worry for all people.
But
in
at the
general.
same time, like, not like they're the only people who can understand high level, like, physics.
Yeah, like high level quantum mathematics and stuff.
And there is, that's Manhattan Project and all that stuff gets wary. But I think in terms of encouraging different viewpoints in academia, Eric is an advocate for that. He has been an advocate against people like Michio Kaku, like
Did you say for or against?
against.
Oh, yeah.
There was a recent Chris Williamson. I don't know if you saw him on.
I've been meaning to watch that. I'm saving a lot of podcasts for when I start driving from Aurora to Colorado Springs.
Watch that one because he calls out a bunch of physicists who've kind of kept this theory of string theory that it's the only theory, cutting funding from everybody else, and now it's kind of falling apart. And to your point of their ivory tower specialization, if you listen to Brett's book, he was the one who inspired me to be a generalist because he encourages people in a world that is changing and is hyper novel, changing all the time. You don't want to be a specialist; you want to be a generalist, and that's what I am.
What you need, I think unironically, Jordan Peterson said it really well, which is you need to specialize at least once in order to gain an elevated platform of reference, is what he called it.
I consider myself a specialized generalist, meaning so my specialty is mainly comedy and wanting to be podcasting. But then I also have a lot of other things that I have in-depth dives, martial arts, mountain climbing, Japanese language, and that has allowed me to. It's one of the reasons I left academia, because people get in these ivory towers, and forget even the actual, just the culture of not being in the real world was something that was, I think, detrimental to so many academics.
That's something that I noticed even in just community colleges, is they were so insular. They didn't have any connection to anything outside of themselves. It was very fallacious in, for those of you who don't know, I went to Red Rocks Community College in Colorado.
It's getting very loud.
Yeah, computer health is kind of important. Yeah, I went to Red Rocks.
I was hearing it through the box. I had to open it.
Red Rocks Community College is very... I'd say it's much further lower on the spectrum of being insular, but there were at least a few points where I went, this is just a class for the sake of having a class about a thing that you invented that is irrelevant to literally everyone outside of this building.
And well, you need that to some degree. My content is not like having those ideas. My thing is that it's why the left-wing ideology perforated so easily in the university.
Yeah.
Because it is very...
It's monopole.
It's monopole, and I think I think a lot of people, especially in university, most people are very agreeable, which I'm not casting...
Externally agreeable.
Well...
There's a difference between what you present to the world and what you genuinely think and act out.
Yes, but I think what you present to the world, if that's what you present for 20 years, that's eventually what you are.
Yes. You are your actions, not your words.
Exactly. And I don't want to say this.
Take your time.
Because you have this idea in universities where anything is possible, because you're kind of in that problem space. You need to be there a lot of the time in university. I think, and it's also why I think, there is definitely this ideology, I think, is more on the feminine side of things. It's fair to say.
Yeah. Feminine and masculine, not,
And
not female and male, by the
just
way.
like there's toxic masculine behavior, I believe there's toxic feminine behavior. And I think toxic feminine behavior looks like accepting everything, but you can't accept everything when you're dealing with adults, because there's some people who do things that are unacceptable.
Yes.
And in the academia, because you're always in this problem space often that is, we are...
It's abstracted too far away from reality to be relevant
Exactly. It's why I encourage people to go out. It's why I like fighting and like climbing mountains
Yeah.
because they're dealt with actual reality. You can
Yes.
reason with how steep the mountain slope is
Yeah.
or how tight the angle of torque or what are the arm bar they have you is in.
You
It
can't-
doesn't change the fact that you're in that situation.
As happened to me last Sunday, you can't argue your way out of an arm bar.
Yeah.
Like, just because it made me annoyed and uncomfortable doesn't change the fact that it was my darn fault that I gave my rolling partner my entire right arm.
Or they just ripped it from your body.
Yeah, they
Whether
just said, "Come here," and I really need you to read The Wheel of Time someday.
It's a lot of books, dude. We gotta.
I know. One of these days, someone else will read those books. But I think it's very... I think right now what we're encountering is we as Western society are approaching the farthest extreme poles that the feminine can produce. And that's not a good or bad thing. That just is a thing that is unbalanced.
Yes, say it is. It's a thing that's unbalanced, and it's one of the things. I think it irritates me in a very specific way because I am more of a masculine guy, and because I've had a disease like bipolar where there's just certain emotions that you can't reason out. They're just like hard fact.
Yes.
And when people are so delusional that. And also, I like merit. I'm a big merit person. I think the people who work the hardest, have the best results, should get the job.
Yeah, a pure meritocracy can and will kill itself very quickly.
Yes, but I would say you need, if you're looking, a lot of people say that, but at the same time, you need like a meritocracy that's 90-10 meritocracy.
You need a meritocracy where the highest levels and the middle levels are almost entirely merit-based. But the entry level cannot be entirely merit-based because you don't know. You simply don't know the merits of every single person trying to enter a field.
Well, exactly. The reason I don't like those arguments is because they're often abstracted for diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Yes.
which I think a interesting point to me, which I heard from actually Jordan Peterson, which is a good point. I think it's contradictory, the whole idea. DIE, you're going to be the most diverse, and you're going to have the same outcomes. Isn't that like a paradox?
It's one of the fundamentally feminine things is chaos. And I don't mean that in the like, the chaos of war or anything. I mean in the pluripotent unpredictability of reality. In like the chaos that brought us... I forget his name. Do you remember who it was who discovered penicillin by accident? Ladies and gentlemen, Overlord Google shall present us with the information. Alexander Fleming. Alexander Fleming didn't intentionally set out to discover penicillin, right? He just kind of noticed some things, put them together, tried some stuff, and wound up discovering that penicillin was an extremely effective measure against pretty much everything ever in terms of like medicine. And that's pluripotent chaos. The other pluripotent chaos was Donald Trump nearly electing Snoop Dogg as the vice president of the United States. It is fundamentally unpredictable, and if you need that in order to move past where you are. Otherwise, time essentially stays still.
You need a balance of chaos. That's true.
Yes.
I think I get frustrated with it because, and this is going back to Eric Weinstein, and this was his point. His point was His point was, let's let the highest levels like Harvard, Yale, the schools that are supposed to be for the best and brightest,
Yes.
be that. Be for the best and brightest.
But the question that I have that I need to preface this with is, we have seen the outcome of doing a thing for its own sake. Science for the sake of science and knowledge for the sake of knowledge are why we are here today. It's how we got to DEI, which both of us fundamentally disagree with for many reasons. You can't just have knowledge for the sake of knowledge, because that just ends up being a solipsistic, onanistic pustule in the academic world. It needs to serve at least some purpose, even if that purpose is just to support other papers or to disprove other papers.
Yes, and I think that's a fundamentally different question from what we're doing. That's the purpose.
But I would argue that it's not. You need, like, in law, particularly, I haven't studied any other law very thoroughly aside from American. So,
we're the best at it.
To any legal scholars out there, please correct me in the comments. Intent is very important in American law. Shooting someone in the head and intending to kill them in cold blood is very different from shooting someone in the head intending to defend your pregnant spouse.
Yes, but at this level, I mean, I don't know. We need physicists at the highest level to be discovering things because we need to get off this planet eventually, or else we're all going to die.
Not all of us. I would argue that
eventually, I think
a shocking amount of us will die.
Well, no, I think eventually, I'm talking long-term time. I'm not talking. I'm talking
which
long-term,
hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands.
I'm talking long-term. Eventually, those who do not, an intelligent species who does not leave their planet just runs the risk of an asteroid impact happening again.
Yes.
Eventually, you have to leave your planet, or that will happen long enough.
Well, my question is, what time scale are we talking about?
I'm not I'm not arguing for space travel in this. I'm just arguing that's a big. Mainly because Eric, that is one point he argues. I think that we need physicists to discover the next bounds of what is possible with humans.
Yes.
And why they do it, I mean, as long as it's, like you said, as long as it's within... I don't care if it's because you just like to do it, as long as it's not something that, that is highly malicious or controversial, just to avoid weird edge cases in this argument.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think, and I believe that merit is the best way to find that out, and you see what happens when you don't. You get people just admitted, and the quality dumps down. Look at the presidents of these Ivy League schools. And what I get frustrated with merit is a lot of people who argue against merit. People think that if you're not in the top level of merit is bad. I think merit can put people in the place they need to be, and that's not a good or bad thing.
Yes.
You want to have systems in place to prevent too many people from stacking up at zero. I
Yes.
agree with that. You definitely need that. But at the same time, I thought I was a person who, not anymore, but I could have probably gone to a Harvard-level university.
Yes.
But I didn't want to because
Yes.
I knew that I would probably be, at least by the average of Harvard students, at least what Harvard used to be, middle of the road at best.
You would be just another Harvard student.
Exactly. And I didn't want to I wanted to have more of an experience in college, so I went to CU, and CU was phenomenal. A high-quality engineering school, great teachers, great professors. What I get annoyed with people with, merit, I love merit because I grew up around Asians. And Asians are highly meritocratic and highly conscientious. People think they're smart. No, they just work their ass off.
Yeah. There is a danger.
God.
You see it in... There is a danger that you see in Asian communities very easily, which is everything comes with a price.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
And the price in this case is yes, you can work your way into an Ivy League school. Most people could, in theory, work their way into an Ivy League school if they did nothing else.
Yes.
But what is the price? The price is deteriorating physical health, deteriorating mental health, burning out any passion that you have in life.
Like for anything else.
You lose, at risk of generalizing, you lose the feminine in your life, the unpredictable, chaotic, creative aspects in the pursuit of a singular thing.
Exactly, and I think that's the pride of greatness. Look at someone like Michael Jordan, like someone like Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Their lives are awful, but
Yeah.
that's the pride of greatness, and I think that's a reality that needs to be accepted.
The pride or price?
Price, not pride. Price.
It doesn't matter whether or not you accept it. The price will still be exacted.
Exactly, but this is my point. Is
the physical? I want to run an idea by you to supplement what you are probably going to, what I think you will say. The physical world is fundamentally masculine in that it does not care how you think or feel. A car will hit you, and it doesn't care how you feel about fossil fuels or the value of a human life. If a car hits you going 60 miles an hour, it's gonna break something, possibly take your life. There are weird circumstances and rolling techniques, but in general, if you get creamed by a car doing 60, you're not going to have a particularly great time. And it doesn't care. The rules of reality don't... There was an amazing phrase. Many people want to change reality. They want to subject reality from objective reality to subjective whim. They want to change it like that. They want to will a thing into being. But the physical world rebuffs that idea entirely. You cannot simply want something enough to make it happen. You have to influence the world through physical action. However, we are in most societies have at least some concept of dualism. And society is fundamentally feminine, at least in my stance, because you can change things based on just words. You can modify law, you can modify the way people act, you can modify the way other people feel.
You can modify systems.
Yes, you can modify systems. But society is fundamentally still within the physical world, and humans still exist fundamentally within both the physical and mental space. Which is why you need both aspects working in harmony, together and against each other at the same time. And what we see right now is a complete lack of the first. We see no working together in the West. We see a lot of adversarial interactions. We see, men get these things, women get these things, yada yada. When it's far more pragmatic for both sides to accept what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and let the other side supplement their weaknesses and strengths. And to your point, the schools are a good example of this, where they are so open, they want to be so open.
I want to say they would be so accepting. Open is more vague. I think accepting of everything and everybody.
Yes, and in so doing, they have no all of the systems that would, in theory, get them the things that they want, they cannot reproduce because if your road is too wide, it's just a field, and it doesn't go anywhere.
And that's my point. My point is, and I guess you're illustrating it beautifully, and I guess I'm just sick of all these arguments and what people are doing with this equity movement, and we're gonna have what they have in the Soviet Union, where you're never going to have equal outcomes because you're never going to have equality of effort. And I know this because I'm a really hard fucking worker. And I've gotten outcomes because of that hard work that most people haven't gotten.
Yes.
But that was the price I pay. I've sacrificed a lot of friends, a lot of ability to do things, a lot of things for that. It's my choice, and I accept those outcomes. And I don't believe a society can function long term like that. You do have to have some degree of meritocracy. I'm not saying there's no social safety net or anything like that. And like I said, I'm a fundamentally competitive person.
That's how you get people like J.K. Rowling.
Well, yeah.
Who take a stance, maintain that stance over a long period of time. And when the goalpost is moved and they stay the same, suddenly she goes from being the icon of acceptance to a turf. J.K. Rowling hasn't changed her stance in like 25 years. Her stance has stayed almost exactly the same.
And her stance is not that crazy. Her stance is that trans women aren't women, which is that's just a true statement. Because it's one.
Yeah, it's an objectively, demonstrably true statement.
It doesn't mean that trans women shouldn't be treated like women, have all those things, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah, they're not. And what's sad to me, there's two sad things. One of them is ridiculous, petty, and will get a laugh out of most people, and the other one is genuinely saddening to me. The first one is, with this movement, we have seen the death of tomboys.
Yeah.
And audience, I don't know how you feel about tomboys.
I love tomboys. Teamwork.
Tomboys are great, at least from a guy's perspective, because you get a bro who has boobs. Just contemplate that for a minute. You get a bro who's willing to stay up all night and shit talk you on Halo and has boobs. Come up with a good argument for why that is a terrible thing to exist, and I will be concerned for you because you're insane. And the second thing is, we have unironically lost the definition of what a woman is. And there is an irony there.
I don't believe we have. I believe we've been willfully ignorant to that. A woman is an adult human female.
Well, that's an adult human female. I mean, like, what a woman is.
That's what a woman is.
I mean, there's more to it.
There is, but that's like, I get what people say. There's more complicated edge cases, but this is the annoying thing.
No, I'm not talking about that. Like, you read King Warrior, right?
Yeah.
I mean that in the same way that Andrew Tate isn't a man, he's a boy acting like a man. He has an adult male body that functions as an adult male body, but he's not a man. That's a boy. That is a child with an adult's body. And similarly, we've lost what a woman is. Like, we had a definition.
Okay, I see what you mean, because I'm going more with like the oh god, what was his name? Matt Walsh is his definition of what, because I think, and this is the problem, like you said, the chaos of the feminine. They want to be accepting, and one thing I want to say, because people you can't generalize. We need generalizations. Generalizations are massively important because
your brain literally functions on them.
There is no statement that is going to be applicable 100% of the time, except for certain axiomatic statements.
Yeah.
And so you need generalizations, and I envy when we don't have to add caveats about this. Like when I say, a trans woman's not a woman. But I obviously mean, like, you shouldn't treat trans women like shit. They should have rights. I'm just saying there's a distinguishing part between them.
And the problem is people... Actually, I'm going to bring this around to a weird place. Mr. Rogers is a great example.
He's great.
Mr. Rogers was a wonderful human being, and he understood in his soul the difference between someone being unique and someone being special. Every human being is unique. None of you are special. There's like the Weinstein Bros, they're special.
Yeah.
I'm not special. You're not special. Your brother's not special. None of I'll bet money I don't even have that I have never encountered a truly special person in my life.
I think I think I have just at universities, and
and being special is not always good. Being special means that you are,
and I think you can make yourself special. Like, that's my belief. My belief is you can. I believe that everyone's given. You are genetically, you are is 50% what you are, which I think is people like. I think that's beautiful. 50% is genetic, but 50% is up to you.
Yeah, you get dealt a hand of cards at the beginning, and you get to figure out what you do with it.
Yeah,
but once again, there's also a price. The Weinstein Bros, because they're just easy to talk about right now. Mm-hmm. How much of their personal lives have been invaded?
Brett's way more
against their will.
Brett's way more than I think Eric's probably, but a ton.
How much have the opportunities that they can, like once on the off chance one of them wanted to be a musician or an electrician or an entertainer, like they are so famous at this point, and their fields, like the populations of their fields of specialization, know them so well that they would encounter shocking pushback if Brett was like, you know what, I want to become a violinist. Like, that's real social pressure that he would have to fight off for possibly the rest of his life. That's one of the prices he pays for being special. Elon Musk is going to be eternally known. Like, that is a price. Every single thing he does is going to be stared at like hundreds of years past his death.
Well, and I love, you remember Attack on Titan? It had a great episode on special. Mm-hmm. Remember when they go to see Keith Shottis? Remember, like, they're like trying to figure out who Grish's dad was, who Aaron's dad was.
Yeah.
And they go to Keith Shottis, and he tells a story about special people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a point where Aaron says, you know, I'm not special.
Yeah.
I'm just the son of a man who was.
Yeah.
And I love the line that Keith then says Aaron's mom said to him. It's like, he doesn't have to be special. He's special because he's born into this world. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a better way to do it, because whether you're special or not is really out of your control.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with genetics, but you can. That's why I'm a big merit person, because working hard, anyone can work hard, anyone. And so no matter how special or not special you are, you can work hard and change that. And that, to me, was the great equalizer. And when people take that away, I think it's why it's such a fierce thing I dislike. Because, and I'm also a fair person. You have to understand, I'm a person who likes to compete, and I want the best man to win. And I don't really, if I lose, like if I win, I don't want to win because they said I win. I want to win because I know I won.
That's why I like losing so much more in martial arts.
Well, you do. You don't really have a choice.
Well, you do, but you can either resent it or you can love it.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the... this is what you're encountering now as well in hyper-feminine places, is the masculine is the validator of effort. In that it is not all accepting. The masculine, like, this is the way that I conceptualize it. if you have like stereotypical parents, right? Just stereotypical middle class, mid 2000s American mom and dad. You give your macaroni art to your mom, and mom's going to love you no matter how ugly it is. Mom's going to give you hugs and kisses and say you're a special boy or girl, and like
That's important.
that is a very important thing.
Yeah.
There is no possible way for me to overstate how important that is.
Exactly.
But dad is different, because if dad sees your macaroni art and your macaroni art sucks, he's not going to go, oh, it's so beautiful. He's going to go, okay. He's going to be unimpressed.
Well, and this is the thing. This is why people without dads, people who grow up without dads do not have long-term, people who don't have dads struggle very deeply with delayed gratification. Dads are important to have delayed gratification, to say, I'm not going to do this today, or I'm going to do this today for something tomorrow.
Dads who are not just... See, I experienced this not as much as people who just genuinely don't have father figures, but my dad was very distant.
Yes, I would agree.
So I struggle to a degree with that as well, which I know would not be as much of a struggle if he had been more involved.
But it's there. You
there.
have it infinitely more so. I mean, look at you. You're doing...
One is infinitely more than zero.
Look at you. You're doing electrical engineering. You're going to jiu-jitsu after this.
Not electrical engineering.
Yeah, my bad. You're becoming an electrician.
Electrical engineers, you have...
Yes, I'm sorry, electrical engineers.
I'm so sorry for all that math you have to do.
And
I have it.
But to go back to moms, I want to emphasize that part of you is also very important, to have that all-loving mother figure,
yes.
Especially in early years of development. The issue, this is why I think I call it toxically feminine, that is great for dealing with kids.
Yes.
That type of mentality does not translate well when dealing with adults.
It is great for the difference between 0 and 1, but going past 1 is the masculine domain. It's why I'm going to get really, really controversial, and I'm about to piss off every Christian that I possibly can. It's why I'm fascinated by the story of Jesus, because essentially my understanding of the premise is Jesus dies on the cross to give humanity infinite chances. No matter how many times you screw up or miss the mark, sin, take your pick of flowery words. No matter how many times you hit 0, my understanding of the story is that act is
eternally redemptive.
Eternally redemptive. You can always start over again, even with your dying breath. And there are those who will take advantage of that in a positive light, those who will take advantage in a negative light, and those who simply won't.
And I think that's a good... I think it's a reductive, simplistic take of the story that is one, and I've never liked it, because as a kid, and even now, I'm like, I didn't know Jesus. How does what he did redeem me? It doesn't make any sense. I think a better interpretation of that story is actually of the story itself, is that the world is going to fuck you in every way possible, and it is your duty and obligation to keep doing your best and aiming towards the highest no matter what. That's more of a Jordan Peterson take. I think that is a much more comprehensive take of the story that anyone can take from, regardless of the religious. And I think that other take is a very, also to piss off Christians. I think Christians they want everyone to believe in Jesus, when I think a better way to get people to their faith is to tell them the wisdom of the stories they tell.
Yes.
They always come at the angle of, you need to love Jesus because this is why. This is why Jesus loves you. This is why Jesus loves you. This is why Jesus loves you. This is why Jesus loves you.
Jesus because
Exactly.
And that is why so many Christian missionaries fail. And just missionaries from any religion in general fail, is because they go, you need to feel this emotion because you can't. I think it was it Chris Williamson who said you can't engineer an audience to feel shock.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to.
Probably someone much wiser than I am. But one of the things about religion in general is when a religion is healthy, it provides a universal set standard of things. It provides a universal reference point, similar to laws, where, like, for Christianity, for example, it helped, like it or not, the church helped keep Europe together through the Dark Ages. Whether or not they started the Dark Ages is a different
It's
question.
the good with the bad.
Yes. What it did is it turned all of Europe into a group of people who could communicate ideas across distance.
Through the connection of a story.
Yes, through the connection of a story and shared value sets. When you share a value set with a person, you're able to agree and disagree on things.
I want to add a
more
point
nuance.
in here that's super important. This is why I hate when people reference places like the Scandinavian countries, like Finland, with all this, because one of the things they don't reference when they reference those countries, the homogeneity of those countries is off the charts.
It's Japan.
It's
like Japan.
Japan's actually more so, but Japan's another good example. This is the thing about people love diversity. There's perks with diversity. You get a lot of different viewpoints, but
a lot of those viewpoints are shitty.
well, no, more like a lot of those viewpoints are going to clash with one another.
Yeah.
When you have one culture, it's a lot easier to pass things because everyone agrees on everything. And it's one of the things people really don't. Well, I've started to realize this. I'm a person who does pretty well with complexity because bipolar. I think it's because bipolar is a complex disease, so
Yes.
you get used to dealing with complex situations.
Because you're forced to as well.
Exactly. And with complex situations, people think that you solve them. No, you manage them, and they continue because they're complex. You can't know every part of them.
Situations occur across time, and humanity has a weird relationship with time in that we are the only known species who is able to plan. Like, wolves can kind of plan, like pack hunters can kind of plan, great apes can kind of plan, but humanity plans generations in advance, years in advance. Like, name me the wolf pack that plans 3 generations in advance when it's hiding away food or marking territory. Only humans do this thing. And since we're still fundamentally animals, to any degree, we're still going to run up against that nature. Like, I love martial arts, and I love a good roll, right? I love
As we all do.
something sex joke. I love getting my ass handed to me because it's a fun time. Like, I learn so much more when I lose. But in the moment, I can deal with that armbar. I can deal with my shoulder being on the mat and my head like 6 inches away, and it's like kind of uncomfortable, but I'll try and endure it and get out of that armbar. Then the next day, my shoulder is horrible, and I didn't plan that far in advance, and that's kind of a microcosm of where we're at now, which is why I think we need to let DEI run its course, similar to a fever.
But the damage they do in the process may be. I think it's true. You have to kind of just outlast it. But there's a couple things it related to this. One thing is the DEI that I recently I talked about on the solo episode I did, but I want to mention it again here. So oftentimes when, like for me, Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan have been very good examples of masculine, like a proper masculine figure.
Yes.
And a lot of people will attack them for, talking to men and being misogynistic, X, Y, Z, whatever.
Pick your ism.
Ism, exactly. And I actually took this from Eric because Eric said something similar, but I'll kind of I'll give him credit for the start, but I'm like, you don't get to tear down my idols without providing me new idols. And the answer of no idols is not a fucking answer.
It is an answer, but it's not a sustainable one.
But no, to me, that's not an acceptable answer because women can have all the idols they want. They promote it. But when you have a dude talking to men, it's why I love when Jordan Peterson was like, is there a problem talking to men? Are men wrong for having idols?
This is what I mean when I say it needs to run its course, because you really enjoyed when I gave you the opening of the Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time turns and ages come and pass, right?
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Yeah.
After reading those books and reading Man's Search for Meaning. Did you ever read that?
No. Viktor Frankl?
Not Viktor Frankl. It might have been. Actually, no, it might have been Viktor Frankl.
He was.
Anyways, Man's Search for Meaning, The Sacred and the Profane. After reading a lot of these books, I've come to realize that a very important thing to let happen is to let people hurt themselves.
Sorry.
So this is where the masculine nature has to fight itself, which is part of our nature as men is we want to stop people from hurting.
Even if we have to hurt.
Yeah. And watching other people get hurt hurts us. Like, I don't like watching other people make bad decisions.
That's why you can't be friends with a bad friend for too long.
Yeah. I've watched friends that I loved dearly spiral into the furthest pits of hell. And it made me uncomfortable in ways that I never want to be uncomfortable again. And I look at our species similarly in that, like you said, you can't tear down our idols without providing new idols. I think it's important to let them learn the consequences of those actions as an archetype.
I think in general you should let people make mistakes, but there's certain things I've started to take a stance on, and those are big ones, especially, and this was Eric's point, people go after Jordan Peterson. He has done single-handedly more for men who have not had a voice than almost anyone on the planet, and he's attacked for it.
And that's how you get memory is important, right?
Yeah.
Dune, memories are kind of important in Dune.
A little bit.
I don't just a little bit. They play some role. So you have to remember that the memories of people are how they interact with the world. The stance that I take is roughly, but not completely this. It is important to me that this generation specifically of young men and women our age and a little older and a little younger, see the consequences of tearing down Jordan Peterson completely. And then the result of that will be Well, when you lose Jordan Peterson, you get Andrew Tate. And then once you tear down Andrew Tate...
No, you get Donald Trump.
Well, then you get Donald Trump, then Andrew Tate. Like, you get those groups of people. They're going to continue, reasonably in that case, tearing them down. Then they're going to get the worst possible results.
That was my point. My point was you guys shouldn't fear Andrew Tate or Donald Trump. Who should really fear is some other guy who's much more savvy, intelligent, and manipulative, Machiavellian, and sadistic.
Intelligent incel.
To start a far-right movement we haven't seen since the Nazis.
Yes. And the Nazis were enough generations ago that they are a story, not a memory. And it's very important to distinguish between the two, because a story can teach lessons, but not as many people take lessons from stories as they do from their memories.
Because it's just, and the whole
it's going to happen. My stance is that it's going to happen anyways. There's going to be that force always there.
Oh, always. This stuff is.
That just is.
It's the I get, and I want to try to understand, because I did talk to my aunt this weekend about it, and how I'm all for, also, like, I'm not against, having women in engineering, and having groups for women. I'm do that.
The caveat I would take is no one should be in tech support. No one should be in tech support. Tech support sucks.
We'll get there.
That's my joke of the day.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes it's just attached with this, like, fear of when men talk to each other. Obviously, I do think it comes from a fear of women going back to a time which they don't even remember. They just know a story of.
Yeah, they don't even know stories. They know stories of stories.
Exactly. And my point is also, I talked about this again, so I'm reiterating myself in what I said in the other episode, but I think women are going to realize is, like, when women complain, there's all these male CEOs. I'm like, do you really want the job of a CEO? Do you want the job of this? Like, congratulations. You have become the very thing that you tried so very hard to tear down.
Yes. You have become the very thing you swore to destroy. I love Star Wars.
Star Wars is great. It has that very same thing. And so I think...
It's a shame we never got an episode 7, 8, or 9. I
know. It's a shame. We really did. Actually, I'm kind of, maybe let some sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah. But like I said, I think it's very important to remember that these people are still people. People learn from their mistakes. You and I are great examples. I spoke the last time I was over, I talked to your brother, and I said that if someone offered, this is going to sound very familiar to anyone who has read the Stormlight Archive, if someone offered to take away all the pain, I would have to reject them.
No, you need pain.
And not just, I don't mean just that. I mean, if someone came up and said, Caelin, I can let you go back in time and let you not make the same mistakes, I would reject them, because then I wouldn't be me.
Jordan Peterson had something similar in a conversation I saw where he was talking to somebody, and he said, I asked my parents when they were in their, like, 70s, if you could go back and have the body you were when you were 25.
Yeah.
But you kept all your memories, like everything in your head, would you do it? And he said what the interesting thing was is the immediate answer was not yes.
Yeah. I would want to watch it. I would be very happy to kind of sit in the back seat. But I would never interfere.
I question people who haven't done a lot of psychedelics shouldn't do those questions, because I've talked about it before. In like, part of the journey of life is the finitude of it, and if you live forever, you're eventually going to do everything. Everything is the same as nothing.
Well,
because if you are not ever, like, this is like not a philosophical, logical. This is everything is nothing, because if you're everything, you are nothing, because how do you distinguish you from other things?
That's why godhood is such a contentious topic.
I think people, the moment, Like one of the things after a psychedelic experience I felt was I was so happy I could die. I was happy to be alive.
Yeah.
But I was happy that I was mortal. The finite time we are given here is what makes it worth it.
Yeah, and that's, to bring it back around, that's fundamentally masculine. Limitation is fundamentally masculine because the feminine is pluripotent. There's a reason why nearly all creation myths start with the feminine chaos. Chaos in Greek mythology.
Did you ever see the most recent Jordan Peterson with Joe Rogan?
I did not.
Oh, you'll have to go back and watch it. But there's a last bit, and Jordan Peterson talks about how in the ancient Mesopotamian myth, there were two basically yin and yang. It was like the mother dragon god and the
Tiamat and Apsu, I want to say.
We'll just call him the feminine dragon god and the masculine, like the patriarchal masculine. Yes. And they were married.
The salt water and the fresh water.
Exactly. And the people in the story, and this is, again, if details are off, I'm sorry, but here's
I own a book on this as well. I feel like I'm failing here as a Mesopotamia fan.
But the point of this is the thing about story. The details aren't what's matter. It's the whole story. But anyway,
yes.
It was something like, I don't know if it was the people of Mesopotamia. They killed.
You're peeking, by the way. You want to?
Oh shit! Thank you. See, this is if we're moving a lot in this podcast, it's because this is the first in this room, so we're still figuring things out.
Oh yeah, these next few podcasts will be very scuffed.
I don't think they'll be that bad. They'll be fun.
Make the first few really scuffed, and then never have problems again.
Well, no, that's why I'm opening cabinets and stuff to try to just figure out what is.
So back to your
anyway, my message. We're getting off track.
Tangents.
So in the story, basically, that it's like the people of Mesopotamia kill the patriarchal god.
Yes.
And then they start living on his corpse.
Yep.
And eventually, the dragon feminine god comes home and is like, "What have you done with my husband?" And then shit gets real. Yeah. And I love it because I'm like, oh my God, I was horrified when I heard that because it's exactly what they're doing now.
Yes.
Bitching about capitalism has its flaws. There's place to critique it. I'm not arguing with that. But
communism, really? You really think that we're gonna execute?
I don't know why people.
The nicest person I know is still kind of a petty bitch.
With communism, my question is there's nothing else like that. There is no bigger example of something that has failed. Not like kind of, but spectacularly more times throughout history. And people still keep coming back to it.
It's because it's a... Do you know the legend of Tantalus?
Before we get there, let me finish this whole...
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. With attacking the systems that are in place, you can only you can only attack capitalism, attack these systems, attack meritocracy, attack the universities before this chaos comes in. And shit gets real quick.
That's why I'm sorry for interrupting you. The greatest casualty in this entire Rainbow Mafia DEI storm, the greatest casualty hasn't been the masculine, it's been the feminine. These people who are so committed to this idea have vivisected one of the most ancient and powerful and beautiful things this world has. They have attempted to kill creative chaos and replace it with destructive chaos and tyrannical order. Like, they have poisoned the well, for lack of better terms. They need the well, they need the water that the well gives, but they keep pouring poison in, and they're poisoning the ground. What's eventually going to happen is the well is going to kill them. The thing that they worship will kill them. The chaos is going to hit them hard. Like, really hard.
I agree.
And I don't know if it will be an actual war, a metaphysical war, I don't know if this is going to be a matter of I don't know if this will be a matter of like a religious jihad Dune style. I don't know whether this is going to come out in law that specifically targets women, but there will be a backblast, and I anticipate that this backblast will be rough on everybody. And that's what I am preparing for. I'm preparing to personally stand my ground there.
Well, and that what is coming is always coming, and you may not be that, but something.
The wheel of time turns.
Yeah, exactly. Things you have to be prepared for that, and I agree. I believe, but at the same time, I think this is an important thing, and I think we'll probably wrap up here because I want to go get.
I'm just making.
No, because I want to go get sandwiches.
Oh, sandwiches sound so good.
I know, right? What were we talking about? Sorry, God, I'm not even stoned. I'm just coffeeed. I should be focused.
You're just caffeinated, but not caffeinated.
Stuff. Yeah, things are. I know where I was.
Mesopotamia.
I got it.
The feminine.
This, you know Lex Friedman, right?
Vaguely, yes.
The podcast. So one thing is, I love how Lex is so positive. Sometimes I hate it, but I love it.
Yes, stop.
Because, and I believe, and he and Elon talked about this, and I think it's very true. I think that people who are positive. And this is coming from someone who has a severe case of very, very severe depression.
Yes.
So,
don't worry. Sorry. Don't worry. I, too, have almost killed myself many times.
So I'm not, but I think there's something truth in this, that those who have a positive vision, no matter what, tend to manifest it in the world.
Yes.
Like, why do you want to have you have to have a realistic vision of what could go wrong, but I think you also have to, and I have really tried of late to have, forget all the reality of the situation.
Yes.
What kind of world would I want if I could create it? And aim for that world.
In a world where you can be anything, be good.
Well, but also aim for that. Like, yes. The world is falling apart, but I think
the world's constantly falling apart, though. The world's constantly falling apart. That's the chaos changing the world.
Exactly. And so I think it's
evil regimes and good regimes both fall apart.
To me, I think a positive vision for men and women is people like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. Forget all the people who have a tilted view of theirs.
Yes.
If you listen to what they say, to what they say to especially men, those are the type of people you want to model. Look at Peterson. He's had a wife for 50 years.
Yep.
You may disagree with him politically, but obviously, been married for 50 years, that's something. That's a good thing to model. He tells young men, if all the women are rejecting you, it's not all the women.
Yeah, it's you.
Same thing with Joe Rogan. A good example of mask, things like that. Like, and just look at me. I mean, I gained so much from what they have had to say. Mm-hmm. I think that is really important. And
ladies, to any women who are in your audience, which would you rather be in a room with, Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson? That's my question. If you were locked in a room with one of those two guys, who scares you more?
I would say the kickboxer with something of like 96-5 record.
Yeah, because Andrew Tate is... Last I heard, Andrew Tate was introspecting and looking back at himself and going, oh, I was not living up to the standards that I not only proposed, but that have been the standard for men for many thousands of years.
Well, and this is the thing I love. Actually, I heard Jordan Peterson talk about Andrew Tate and like what he thought of him.
Very briefly.
And he said one thing that I think is important. If you dislike someone, give the devil their due. Yes. That's super important. And this is the thing about Andrew Tate. To have a kickboxing record. He's a great kickboxer. To have that type of record, that's that's phenomenal.
That is effort and talent at the same time.
Exactly. And and like I said, I honestly I have a general idea of what he said, but not really. I just kind of avoid him because I've never been drawn to him.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I want to give. And but he just there's too much ego in what he's trying to say. From what I've seen, and like one the huge thing is also, yeah, it sounds old. Have kids in a family. Like that's like one thing that is so, I think, underappreciated by both men and women now. And another thing I said in this last episode, because I talked to my aunt who's a therapist, young women said one thing that was very interesting. Like there's a lot of immature men who play too many video games. And as men who have played too many video games, I have to say to men, because just to be fair, because we've been hounding on the feminine, get your shit together. Like
can I jump in here and tell you about something? I've been playing a game called Blue Archive. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, as of today's date, there's a lot of controversy going around, like the devs and the publishers and a whole bunch of stuff around that. What you do, how do I want to phrase this? There's a meme in the Blue Archive community, which, do you know what a gacha game is?
No.
It's gambling for characters. You basically spend premium currency, and you remember Xenoblade Chronicles 2? That's a gacha system. That is a gacha system. You remember you had the mob blades, and then you had the blades that had actual names and useful skills. Those are 3-star, 4-star, whatever rarity character. They're the rare characters that you want. Blue Archive is a gacha game. You play as just a person named Sensei. And you get called to the city, the big academy city, and you are basically called there to teach students. And because it's a gacha game, it's all cute girls and cute girls with guns, and it's great because I love cute girls with guns. But the story is actually like, you go from something that a lot of gacha games have, which is a self-insert protagonist, to a protagonist that I want to be like. The meme in the community is that Sensei goes from being, he's just like me, for real, to I want to be like him. Because the character is entirely dedicated to making the lives of his students better and to making them better people.
And how does this tie back in?
This ties in to what you were saying, which is, gentlemen and boys, look at the games you're playing, look at the male characters that you're playing as, and ask what you can learn from them. Because video games are, I want to be like Dunban, right? Dunban is a role model, not just to Shulk and everyone in the game. Dunban's character represents an archetype of masculinity that is very healthy. He relies on Shulk, who's younger than him, but who also gains wisdom in different areas that he doesn't have. Shulk keeps him from killing Mumkar. Killing Mumkar would have done, I wouldn't say irreparable, but would have traumatized Dunban deeply. And Shulk stops him. So he's learning from the younger generation, but he's also a very good role model to both Ryan and Shulk and the girls of the party. Like, him and Ricky get along really well, and their interactions with Melia in particular are chef's kiss.
And, well, I think that was we're kind of just going over the stuff I talked in my solo episode, but that was my thing. I realized, go stop, because this is the thing about video games, is that they have the adventure of your life you're seeking, but they have none of the consequences. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing.
What they do is, this is why I think there's an old Jordan Peterson clip about this, where he says something along the lines of video games give boys the illusion of purpose, which is something we are so deeply lacking in modern society that it is that our society is literally falling apart because we've been denied purpose for so long that boys are just like, I can go out into the world and be reprimanded and demeaned for trying to achieve my purpose, or I can play video games and no one will tell me that I'm a horrible human being for existing.
Exactly, and I think that video games are so engrossing while you're playing them, but when you're not, they lack that. That is the illusion they give you. And it's why, some people, like, I know you still play video games. You seem to have it under control now.
I play one gacha game.
Exactly.
And actually, no. I play the occasional indie game on Steam.
But my point is do you know how bad I want to play Tears of the Kingdom and Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Dude, do you know how...
I don't. And I don't know because you want to play them more badly than I can understand.
Oh, God. You know me and Zelda. Like, I want to play those games so bad, but I can't. And I remember I was on a date the other day and it went, whatever. It wasn't bad, but it just didn't go anywhere. And I was thinking, God, girls are so much more fun than video games because they're real. Like, you choose the video games where the girls are exactly the way you want. They end up this way, but then you still feel hollow. You have to go and have the adventure of your life. Go and live the video game. What would the video game character, like you said, like what you said about how look at the characters you playing as. Yeah. If you were that character in this world, in our world, playing like they were playing a video game of our world, what would they be doing?
Oh, the Sensei in Blue Archive is an ideal masculine feminine character because it's not gendered. They're not gendered. It's literally the students just refer to you as Sensei.
Do you ever see a picture of you, or is it all?
No, it's all done for self-insertion.
Oh,
in service, but and that's on purpose, and I like it because unironically, this is something I've been sitting on and trying to work on. I mean, I'm going to bounce this off of you. When you're younger as kids, boys and girls aren't very different.
Totally like puberty.
You hit puberty, and they split off from one another.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, past puberty, they start to reconverge. And they're not as closely the same.
It's kind of like it starts here and then it comes out here and then kind of comes back up here, kind of like a bong.
Yeah, like a bong.
Shape, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, I can't get this image.
Men and women are like a bong.
Men and women are like bongs.
And if you hear weird bumping sounds, I am farting.
Yeah. So the point that I want to make is that they can get away with this because it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It's the actions you take and the way that you interact with other people that defines whether or not you are a boy or a man or a girl or a woman. You can be the most beautiful adult female on earth, but if you're about as shallow as a puddle and self-involved, ladies, no dude is going to be attracted to that for longer than it takes to stick his dick in you. I'm being perfectly honest there. You're not interesting. You're just something to put your dick in.
Yeah.
And girls see it with men as well, where it's like, all you do is play video games? That's your hobbies, your talents, everything? That's not attractive.
No, and it's a thing, and I want to articulate this, that we probably more than most people, because we've both been addicted to video games to varying degrees growing up. They're so much fun. They're so much fun. They're so good. They're actually too good, and you have to sometimes admit when things are too good, and go and have the adventure. Like that's how I got out of video
Have
games.
the adventure of life.
Yeah, it's why I loved
The adventure that is life.
I think we can start to wrap up here and we can get sandwiches. Yeah. But I want to say that it's why I was such a big fan of Zelda, because Zelda is a very simple story. Mm-hmm. Link is a very bland character that is like, again, you're supposed to just insert you.
Yeah, Link is fundamentally a faceless, brainless guy that you remote control.
And we're excited when we find a game in text that says he said something once. We're like, oh my god!
Oh my god!
He talked at one point.
He said more than yeah.
But the story was you go fight the, Demon King and save the princess. That's the whole story. I live that in life. I would, Breath of the Wild, the game where you go and explore. I would just literally go and explore things like that in real life.
Yeah.
And
that cool looking derelict building. I want to see how close I can get into there.
Like climbing the mountain. I guess we can end with I climbed Little Bear this last weekend.
Actually, I'd like to talk a little tiny bit more about Zelda.
Go ahead. We can wrap up on Zelda. But let me finish this. My point was that I climbed a mountain that you would climb in the game. And that was way more fun because the consequences, it meant more. It contributed more to who you were than, any amount of time on a gaming console.
Yeah. It's kind of why I say video games are... I'm glad that the entire industry is going through growing pains right now, because growing pains means that you're growing. Growing into what, I don't know, but I like that it's growing in the first place rather than stagnating. And on the topic of Legend of Zelda, I was thinking about this recently because there's a lot of reasonable criticism leveled at the save the princess trope, right? Congratulations, you've objectified women, yada yada, that whole thing. The idea more deep down that I think is important for men to understand is that you take on the journey to save the princess, not with the objective of saving the princess. Take it to better yourself. And this goes back into the hero with 1,000 faces. This touches on that.
Well, I think you actually go on the journey of saving the princess, and along the way, you discovered that it wasn't about saving the princess. It was about bettering yourself.
Yes. You can start with the goal of going, I want girlfriend. Let's just lay out the life of some theoretical jackass real quick.
Okay. Let's wrap up on this because we've been trying.
Okay, you start at 15, right? You are just a generic dude in the Midwest of America, right? Just generic white dude. You have two emotions, and sometimes you experience both of them at once: angry and horny. And because you are angry at everything and anything, and you want to put your dick in everything that moves, you just, let's be honest, that's what being a 15-year-old boy is like. Or
wait, I'm not 15 anymore. Shit.
Well, I don't recall how. I don't.
Just go on.
You're not furious 24/7, as far as I know.
You don't know what I'm doing under this table.
Furious, not furiously masturbating.
Yeah, you don't know how fun, my little snake stroke, mine going, You're like...
This is why we're both single. So you start out there, all of a sudden, something happens. A call to adventure. Let's say realistically, there's a chick in class that you're fairly friendly with, and she just passively shoots you down so hard that you feel like you got hit by an anti-air gun. You didn't even make an approach to her, but she's just like, yeah, yada yada, basically describes the type of guy you are and fucking emotionally wrecks you. And there's something in you that says, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to become a badass. So your goal is twofold. You want to A, prove her wrong, and B, put your dick in her. And that's the beginning, right? So you start going outside. You're like, all right, what's Master Chief do? Master Chief does a lot of reps. Master Chief works out. What's Shulk do? Shulk can use a sword, right? You start getting more physical. You go from being a skinny little twig boy, you get some muscles. And along the way, you're like, wow, I like this. This is really cool. So now you're, let's say, 18, right? There's a trap, which is porn. And porn is a very slippery slope.
The slipperiest.
Something lube joke. Anyways, you hit that. You're like, all right, you've avoided that trap. You slipped a little. Move from there. And your goals have kind of changed at this point. You're like, all right, I'm no longer a skinny twig boy, but I want to look like you, right?
Thank you.
Like every time you just kind of like move your arm like this, I can see your bicep. And I've got like that, oh God, I've got to hit the gym thing that guys get.
Yeah.
So your goal isn't I want to show her up or like prove her wrong anymore. And it's no longer I want to put my dick in her. It's like, man, I want to look better just for me. You've evolved. Your motivations are no longer external, they're internal. You're still a teenage boy though. So let's say you get in some fights. Right? And you go, man, those guys kicked my ass. It doesn't even have to be physical. Like, let's say you just get your ass kicked into, like, you get into an argument. And rather than being a whiny bitch, you go, wow, they actually made good points. So you start reading. Start reading various things. Doesn't even matter. You up your acuity level. You hit 24, and at this point, you're reading because you're just curious about things now. You're like, oh, what even is quantum mechanics? People talk about it. What the hell is quantum mechanics?
Don't ask me.
You start looking at like history because you're like, we got these big ass museums. Why the hell? What's the big deal with these old white dudes, right? So you start looking at that. Now all of a sudden you're a student of history, right? By accident. You are maintaining a healthy body by accident. You didn't intend for it to go this way, but you're like, okay, I like these games. I like looking decent. What happens along the way, that's a hero's journey. Struggling with porn is literally just hitting, what was the island?
It's a sprite. It's an illusion. It's the ghost that leads you down the thing that makes it look like the real thing, but it isn't.
No, there's, in the Odyssey, what's Calypso? Literally what happens in one of the parts of the Odyssey, Odysseus and his shipmates, they wash up on Calypso's island. Calypso's literally a nymph. She's a Titan nymph, I want to say. Anyways, Calypso's like, if you stay here, Odysseus, we can fuck all the time. And Odysseus is like, oh man, that's tempting. And he gives in a little. He gives in, I think, for a year. And then eventually he's like, wait a minute, hold on. What? I've got a wife and kid. What the hell am I doing? So there's Odysseus, a hero from 6,000 years ago, give or take.
Interesting. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so there's him struggling with porn, right? Achilles, for all of you young men who just, you see red sometimes, and then the consequences come by. Achilles murders Hector and ties him to the back of a chariot and runs around the city for 3 days. If you can imagine someone killing you, strapping your dead body to a bike, and then riding around your parents' house and your mom has to see this, that's what he did. He did that. He rode around showing his parents and
Okay, what's the end of this story?
So the end of the story is you get to the end, and now you don't look like a skinny twig. Now you have a stronger mind, and now you have a set of values that you try to adhere to. It doesn't have to be perfect or the most robust. But now that you've gotten to this point, let's say you're like 24, 25, now, like in theory, that girl that you wanted to show up in middle school when you were 15, if she's gone through a healthy growth arc, now the adult woman who you thought of as a prize isn't a prize anymore, and she's not a goal. Now you are worthy of the person you thought she was. That doesn't mean you have quote earned the quote unquote right to this person, but you have become worthy of standing next to this person, starting all the way from an angry, horny 15-year-old. You run through that arc. So you're now, if she is a similarly healthy adult woman, she can look at you and go, I remember you being a skinny, solipsistic, fallacious twig boy. Now you're an adult man with virtue and grit and worth.
So you become the person, who she may want.
Yes. And what you're doing, do you remember I promise I'll wrap this up really soon. Do you remember way back in the old YouTube days, Chugga Conroy,
Yeah,
Proton John, Nintendo Capri Sun? NCS had a thing that has stuck with me forever, which is he said he wasn't in love with the idea, or he was one of the characters from Mother. He was like, wow, she's really cute. Like, got the whole crush thing on her. Come years later, he's like, I wasn't in love with the woman, I was in love with the idea of the woman.
Yes.
Become worthy of the affection of the idea of the woman, and you are now just objectively a better person, and you are capable of returning that love.
Caelin Jones, everybody.
I ramble.